You know, it's funny how medicine sort of puts everything in these neat little boxes.
Oh, completely. The silo effect.
Right. If your chest hurts, you go to the cardiologist. If you can't breathe, you see a pulmonologist.
And for the most part, they stay in their lanes.
But the body doesn't actually work that way, does it?
Yeah.
It's all just one messy, interconnected system.
It really is. Your heart and your lungs don't have a wall between them.
Which brings us to the topic of this deep dive. We're looking at a study that basically drives a truck right through those silos.
It does. It suggests that one of the most bread and butter drugs in cardiology might actually be a secret weapon for respiratory health.
And we're not talking about something obscure here. We are talking about statins.
The same pills millions of people take every morning for their cholesterol.
Exactly. This is all based on a huge new piece of research by Crawford and his team, published in 2025 in the Annals of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology.
And the headline is pretty striking. Taking a statin might prevent asthma attacks?
But, and I want to be clear about this right from the start, this isn't a simple take this pill, fix that problem story. The data is, well, it's messy.
It is. And honestly, that messiness is where the most interesting science is hiding. If you just look at the top line number, you'd miss the whole point.
So that's our mission today. We're going to unpack this study, figure out why a heart pill would even help the lungs, and more importantly, who it helps.
Because it turns out it does not help everyone equally.
Right. There's a specific group where this signal is incredibly loud, and we need to understand why.
It forces us to rethink the very mechanism of asthma itself.
Let's start with the basics, though. Most people know what statins do. They lower your bad cholesterol, they prevent heart attacks. Why on earth would anyone even think to look at them for asthma?
It comes down to a concept in pharmacology called pleiotropic effects.
Which is a fantastic Scrabble word.
It is, but all it really means is multiple effects. A drug is designed for one target. For statins, that's an enzyme in the liver that makes cholesterol. That's the primary mechanism.
But drugs are just chemicals in a biological system. They do more than one thing.
Exactly. The cholesterol lowering is the main event, but there's a sideshow. And for statins, that sideshow is that they are potent anti-inflammatories.
Ah, okay. So they don't just, scrub the arteries clean. They actually calm the immune system down.
Precisely. They have these immunomodulatory properties.
And that's the connection to asthma. Because a lot of people think of asthma as just, your lungs getting tight, a mechanical problem.
That squeezing is the symptom.
Yeah.
The cause is inflammation. Asthma is, at its core, an inflammatory disease of the airways.
So the logic for this study was basically, if statins reduce inflammation everywhere else, maybe they reduce it in the lungs too.
That's the hypothesis. It's asking, is there a crossover benefit? If I'm taking this to keep my heart arteries from getting inflamed, am I accidentally keeping my airways from getting inflamed?
You can't answer that with a small study. You'd never see a signal like that.
No. For a secondary effect, you need massive scale. You need big data.
And that's what they did. They tapped into the Kaiser Permanente Southern California database. We're talking electronic health records for 193,205 adults.
Which is just a staggering number. Almost 200,000 people. That gives you the statistical power to find a needle in a haystack.
And these weren't people who were, they weren't already really sick, were they?
No, and that's a key distinction. These are adults with mild asthma. Not severe, uncontrolled cases, just regular people with mild asthma who were given a statin for their heart.
And the researchers just watched them statistically for a year.
To see what happened. Specifically, they were looking for an acute exacerbation.
An asthma attack. The kind that sends you to the ER or has you calling your doctor for steroids because your rescue inhaler isn't cutting it.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get to it. They crunched the data on almost 200,000 people. Did the statin help?
If you lump everyone together, the answer is yes. But it's a very qualified yes.
Okay, what's the number?
The adjusted relative risk, or ARR, was 0.92.
0.92. So I'm doing the math right. That's an 8% reduction in risk.
Correct. People on a statin were 8% less likely to have an asthma attack compared to similar patients who weren't.
I have to be honest, as a skeptic, 8%. That sounds, well, it sounds like statistical noise.
And you're right to be underwhelmed. In clinical medicine, an 8% benefit is modest. It's a signal, but it's faint. If the study stopped there, we'd probably just file it under interesting but not that useful.
Yeah, it feels like maybe those 8% just had a better year for other reasons.
And that is the danger of averages. They smooth everything out. So the researchers did what good data scientists do. They started stratifying the data, breaking it down.
Looking for the subgroups.
Exactly. asking, does this work better for some people than for others? And they looked at two big variables, race and ethnicity, and body mass index, or BMI.
Okay, let's start with race.
Yeah.
What did they find there?
Well, for Hispanic patients, white patients, and Asian and Pacific Islander patients, that average finding held up. There was a small reduction, but it was non-significant.
Meaning it could have just been random chance.
Correct. So for the majority of these patients, the drug didn't really do much for their lungs, but then they looked at Black patients, and the signal jumped. The adjusted relative risk dropped to 0.82.
Wow, okay, so that's an 18% reduction.
Exactly. We went from maybe at 8% to a very solid 18%. That is more than double the benefit. That moves from noise to, okay, something real is happening here.
That's a huge difference. Why would a heart drug work twice as well for asthma in Black patients? Is it a genetic thing?
It's probably less about the drug itself and more about the asthma. We know asthma isn't just one disease. There are different phenotypes, different flavors of it.
And that leads us right into the second variable they looked at, which I think is where the why starts to become clear. They looked at weight.
They did, and this is so crucial. We tend to think of fat or adipose tissue as just sort of inert storage.
Weight.
Right. But biologically, it's an organ, and it's a very active, angry organ. It secretes hormones and, most importantly, inflammatory cytokines.
So people with obesity are often in a state of chronic low-grade inflammation,
Their baseline inflammation level is just higher across their whole body.
which would mean their asthma might be driven more by that systemic inflammation than, say, a thin person whose asthma is triggered by pollen.
That's the theory, precisely. And if that's true, a drug that fights systemic inflammation like a statin should work better.
And did the data back that up?
It did, beautifully. When they looked at patients who were underweight, normal weight, or just overweight, the statins didn't do much. No significant benefit.
But for patients with obesity.
A signal lit up, a significant reduction in asthma attacks.
So now we have two big pieces of the puzzle. A strong signal in Black patients and a strong signal in patients with obesity. And the big aha moment in these studies is usually at the intersection of those two.
It is. When you look at the people who are in both groups, Black patients who also have obesity, that's where you see the strongest effect of all.
What's the number?
The adjusted relative risk falls to 0.79.
A 21% reduction.
21%. Now think about your reaction to 8%. 8% was meh. 21% is preventing 1 out of every 5 attacks. That is clinically meaningful. That keeps people out of the ER.
That's huge. And it really seemed to validate that phenotype idea. It suggests that for this specific group, their asthma is mechanically different. It's more of an inflammatory disease, so it responds better to an anti-inflammatory drug.
It's a lock-and-key situation. For a patient whose asthma lock is an allergen, the statin key doesn't fit. But for a Black patient with obesity, the lock might be systemic inflammation and the statin is the perfect key.
You know, Dr. Glenn Tesfu, a GP who commented on this, he used the phrase biologically plausible. I love that phrase. It's the polite scientific way of saying, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It does make sense, and clinicians have kind of suspected this for a while. You hear anecdotal reports. A cardiologist puts someone on a statin, and 6 months later the patient says, you know, funny thing, I haven't needed my inhaler as much lately.
But those were just stories until now.
Exactly. The plural of anecdote is not data. But now, with this huge data set, we have the data.
Okay, so we have a 21% risk reduction in a vulnerable population. This feels like a win. But I do want to pump the brakes, because we can't just start handing out statins to everyone with asthma now.
No, absolutely not. And we need to be really clear about that. This was a retrospective study.
Meaning they were looking in the rearview mirror.
Right. They analyzed data that already existed. They didn't control the experiment. And that creates potential blind spots.
Like healthy user bias.
That's a big one. Think about it. The kind of person who sees a doctor, gets a statin prescription, and actually takes it every day. That person is probably taking better care of their health in general.
So maybe their asthma got better because they're managing their health better overall, not because of this one pill.
We can't rule that out. You can try to adjust for those things mathematically, but you can never be 100% sure.
Correlation does not equal causation.
Never. And that's why the guidelines have not changed. Dr. Tesfu was very clear.
Yeah.
You do not prescribe statins for asthma. The risks of side effects, muscle aches, liver issues, they outweigh this potential benefit if your heart is healthy.
But there's a massive sweet spot here, isn't there? Because so many people have both issues.
And that is the actionable takeaway right now. If you have a patient, especially in that high benefit group, a Black patient with obesity who has both cardiovascular disease and mild asthma, this is fantastic news.
It's the two birds, one stone scenario.
It is. And think about getting people to actually take their meds. It's so hard with statins. High cholesterol doesn't hurt. You can feel totally fine. So people stop taking the pill.
But asthma hurts. An asthma attack is scary. Not being able to breathe is terrifying.
Exactly. So if a doctor can now say, look, this pill isn't just protecting your heart 10 years from now, it might actually help you breathe better today. That completely changes the conversation.
That's a much better sales pitch. It turns a long-term preventative into something that helps with short-term symptoms, at least in the patient's mind.
Which could drive better adherence, which saves lives on the cardiac side, and potentially helps the lungs. It's a win-win.
So what's the next step? Crawford's team found the signal. How do we prove it's real?
We need the gold standard, a randomized controlled trial, an RCT.
But it can't be a generic trial, right? Based on what we've discussed.
No. If you just grab 1,000 random people with asthma, you'll probably just get that weak 8% result again, and it won't be enough to change practice.
They need to target it.
They need to hunt where the ducks are. Design a trial specifically for patients with obesity and make sure it has high representation of Black participants. Test the hypothesis in the group where the signal is strongest. That's how you'll know for sure.
And it'll need to run for a while.
At least a year. To follow patients through all the seasons, to really track exacerbations, and to make sure there are no unexpected side effects.
It just highlights how much we still have to learn about drugs we use every single day. Statins have been around since the late 80s.
We think we know everything they do, but we don't. And that's the real power of big data and AI. We're starting to see these patterns that a single doctor, or even a team of doctors, could never spot on their own.
It makes you wonder what else is hiding in plain sight.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if a heart pill can help the lungs, what else is out there? Is there a diabetes drug that helps with migraines? An allergy pill that helps with arthritis?
There almost certainly is. The body is a web. We've spent a century cutting that web up into pieces to study them. Cardiology, neurology, rheumatology, but the drugs circulate through the whole web.
So it feels like we're moving into an era where we stop treating organs and start treating pathways.
That is the dream. Instead of saying, here's a heart drug, we say, here's an anti-inflammatory that works on pathway X. And if that pathway is causing your heart disease and your asthma, then one drug could hit both.
That would be a complete revolution in medicine.
It would be. We're not there yet, but studies like this one are the first steps. It's about recognizing that the so-called side effects, these pleiotropic effects, might actually be the main event for some patients.
So, to wrap us up for you listening, if you have mild asthma, don't stop using your inhaler. And don't start demanding a statin if your cholesterol is fine.
Please don't.
But if you're one of the millions of people who are managing both heart health and breathing issues, and especially if you fall into those groups where the benefit was so strong, this is a conversation worth having with your doctor.
Absolutely. It could be the extra motivation you need to stay on that therapy. It turns a chore into a tangible benefit.
It's fascinating. A heart drug, moonlighting as a lung drug. Thanks for walking us through all that.
My pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for listening. Keep an eye out for those hidden connections, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.